Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I am McKinley412, looking at the 8-game main slate for Wednesday here. Wild slate last night. I mean, when you get a 14-game slate, of course, there's going to be some craziness to it, but the Cubs hitting 20 runs, Valdez with the no-hitter, was pretty wild stuff. So hopefully you guys were able to do well with it. Let's just kind of dive right into this slate, so we can do well with this one too. Garrett Cole, right up at the top, facing off against Tampa Bay. Cole's the top pitcher on the slate. I mean, he's got the best floor. He's got the best ceiling. He's facing off against like a struggling Tampa Bay offense, and we're getting him at a pretty small discount a little bit. He was close to 12,000 in terms of salary, so I think he's just going to be your SP1, especially in cash games, which is kind of where my mind is built. You're definitely going to be, he's going to be the SP1. In my opinion. Ryan, not too far below him at 10.1K. He's had some home run issues as of late, but I kind of really like this matchup. Right-handed pitcher going up against this St. Louis squad. And St. Louis, they've lost a lot of their left-handed bats. Gorman is day-to-day. Donovan, he is on the IL. He's out. So it's just a very heavy right-handed bat team. So I'm going to have a lot of interest here in Ryan. I'm actually going to have quite a bit of interest in a lot of these top guys. But yeah, so I mean, depending on what this St. Louis lineup looks like, if they're, chugging out 8 right-handed bats, I'm going to have an increased interest in Ryan here. Logan Webb facing off against Arizona. He's got a great floor. I love Webb in terms of like a DFS pitcher is kind of like reliability. Pitching at home in San Francisco, we love that ballpark, especially for pitchers in DFS. Super high ground ball pitcher as well, but he does have a limited ceiling. He has had double-digit strikeouts in a couple of games so far this season, but they were against like the highest strikeout teams. So look into it what you will, but more often than not, he's kind of good for like that 5 to 7K range. So limits his upside, but I do think he has a nice floor here. Senga right below him at 9.5K. He's really the only top salary pitcher that's facing off against like a bottom tier offense, like Tampa Bay, St. Louis, Arizona, like all those are opponents that I was listing. Like they're decent offenses for sure. Kansas City is not that. So he's definitely got the greatest matchup among all of these guys. He just does have some control issues from time to time. His ceiling is phenomenal. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Webb. I think he's even got a higher ceiling than Ryan. So how much are you going to factor in the matchup here, I think is kind of what you're really going to be paying attention to the most. He does come in at a pretty nice discount, though, compared to the rest of the pitchers on this slate. McClanahan, right behind him at 9.3. Almost seems a little bit too cheap. McClanahan, like in my brain, is kind of a guy who I'm just like so used to just paying $10,000 for every single time. He's really been struggling, though, as of late. It's been pretty ugly. But so is the Yankees offense that he's facing off against. Yeah, Judge is back, but the Yankees as an offense really don't scare me too much. And McClanahan's got enough, sample size and data to really think that, this is just a stretch that he's in where he's not doing too well. I want to be on the train before his price goes back up to what it typically is in like that low 10,000 range. So 9.3K, he is pretty cheap. I still would play Cole, Ryan, Senga, maybe even Webb ahead of him. But I do think, that he is a really intriguing play here moving forward. Dylan Cease facing off against Texas. Cease has proven, like he's shown us he can be a true ace in this league. He's a stud. But man, just playing any pitcher against Texas is always terrifying. I will say, Texas, they don't have Seager. They don't have Jonah Heim. So all of a sudden the lineup doesn't look nearly as scary, but it's still going to be a GPP play for me at this point. Kikuchi facing off against Baltimore. Kikuchi's in a great stretch right now. He's got like 3 or 4 straight games now where he is looking really good. He's got that strikeout upside. He's definitely going to be in that player pool, but kind of like Cease against Texas, Kikuchi against Baltimore. I just have a lot of hesitation playing pitchers facing off against Baltimore, but he is sub K. I mean, there's a $600 price drop from Cease to Kikuchi. There's $1,500 price drop from McClanahan to Kikuchi. So it's not like we're paying mid-8 or above. Like salary drops off pretty quick here in terms of these pitchers on this specific slate. So I have interest in Kikuchi for sure, but it is with some hesitation. Dakota Hudson, it's just going to be a pass for me. He's going to be stretched out for sure, like he went 90 plus pitches or whatever. But I don't know. I just don't want to pay that much for Hudson. Going to be off for me. Yes, Minnesota strikes out a ton. They do. But still just a little bit of fade for me. Going to Gonsolin. Facing off against Oakland, it's kind of like the Lance Lynn thing from yesterday, in that he's just going to be a really intriguing play just because he's facing off against Oakland and he's at home on the Dodgers, and he's probably going to be in line for the win bonus and everything. But man, if you've been watching these videos throughout the season, I've never really been a huge fan of Gonsolin in DFS. His price certainly has dropped. He's not as high as he once was, but it's just because he's really been struggling. He's allowed 4 or more earned runs, I think, in 5 of his past 6 starts, or 4 of his past 5. He's been struggling. So I don't really have a whole lot of interest in Gonsolin. Is he a fade? No, not at all. But I just don't have too much interest in him. I actually have a lot more interest in Grayson Rodriguez here. Remember, Grayson Rodriguez, top pitching prospect, came into the majors and was just awful. He just could not get it together. They sent him back down to the minors. He's back up into the majors. This is going to be his 4th start. In his previous 3 starts, upon returning back to the majors, he's looked solid. He's starting to get it together. Maybe that just initial MLB phase was a little bit too much for him. Not a great matchup, but at 7,000, you really don't have to do too much to really pay off his price tag. So I do think that Rodriguez, given his prospect potential, given what he is capable of, I think that he is going to be in play for me here. Smiley against Cincinnati, no, just no interest there. Ciccone, I honestly don't know anything about this guy other than what I read in his little player bio at the bottom here, in that he's got an ERA of 6.38 in the Pacific Coast League. I will say the Pacific Coast League is a minor league. It is the offshoot minor league that has a lot of runs. Okay, having an ERA of 4+ in the Pacific Coast League is totally normal. They score like crazy over there. Williamson for Chicago, that's a pass. Really the only guy down here that I'd have any interest in is going to be Dane Dunning going up against the White Sox. He doesn't really strike anybody out. He's got a super low strikeout rate. You can see he's only got 36 strikeouts in his past 10 starts. But it's more about he's facing off against the White Sox, who really just don't scare me too much as an offense at all, especially after the trade deadline and everything. So 6.1K, I'm fine if you want to throw Dunning in there. He's really the only cheap guy that I do have some interest in. So looking at the sheet, Cole, I do have Ryan there. I'm assuming that Gorman's going to be out, and it's just going to be a really heavy right-handed St. Louis lineup that can struggle. So I do like him there. Senga, great upside, great matchup going up against Kansas City. I already explained all this stuff. So this is kind of where everything is. Dunning's the only guy that I do have any low tier interest in. Going to the bats, Dodgers going up against Harris, going up against that Oakland bullpen. They're certainly going to be top stack. They're probably going to be the most popular. Wouldn't shock me if they're the chalk of the entire slate. Right below them, I really do like this Chicago Cubs team. I mentioned I didn't like Lively yesterday. Paid off. Hit 20 runs. I do like this Cubs team again. They're very affordable too, going up against Williamson. And really the good thing I like about the Cubs, kind of similar to the St. Louis, what I don't like about, is they are chock full of right-handed bats. Obviously, Bellinger's the lefty, but everybody else is either a switch hitter or a right-handed hitter that they can be jamming in there. Yan Gomes, this is probably going to be a really popular catcher play. I'm just telling you right now, 3.1K. Gomes mashes left-handed pitching. It is pretty insane what his stats look like against left-handed pitching. So Yan Gomes is probably going to be my catcher here tonight. I'm just going to say that right now, and he's probably going to be pretty popular. But guys like Swanson, Horner, Happ, these Cubs bats are hot. They scored 20 runs last night, but even before that, this offense has really been clicking as of late. So I do really like the Cubs here, especially if the wind's blowing out in Wrigley. Oh my gosh, they might even be my top stack over the Dodgers. Cincinnati on the other side, Smiley, he's kind of always had home run issues in his entire career. So I do kind of like Cincinnati there. And then San Francisco, I want to like them more, but they're always a pinch hit risk that we do have to be paying attention to and concerned about. So there is that little hesitation there. Going into the GPP, it's Texas going up against Cease. Like we said, Cease is a fantastic pitcher. Texas is down a couple of their top bats, but it's still an elite offense in this league regardless. They can go off on any day. If you do see that Cease is a little bit more owned here, I definitely am going to have a lot more interest in Texas as a GPP play. Toronto going up against Rodriguez. Again, top prospect, very cheap, very affordable. Could see some ownership. He's looked decent as of late. Since his second call up to the majors, but he's shown that he's not fully ready yet. Still young, still improving. So I do really like the Toronto as kind of another GPP play. Minnesota, Oakland, two cheap guys. Oakland going up against Gonsolin. Minnesota going up against Hudson for St. Louis. They're so cheap. I feel like the cheap guys, the cheap team, every single video all season long has been Minnesota and Oakland. Minnesota finally does have a little bit more priciness to them, but again, Julian's still 3.5K and everybody else is just dirt cheap. Minnesota's got a lot of lefties that I'm gonna have some interest in. Especially going up against Hudson. Julian, he's going to be at the forefront kind of it. He's cooled down quite a bit. I will say he was super hot maybe like 2 weeks ago or so. He's cooled down a bit. But still, Julian, Kepler, Larnack, just a lot of guys, a lot of lefties that I like on this team. Don't forget Buxton, Correa, Polanco. I mean, they're fine plays. Just that their salary is a bit up. So that's kind of where the slate breaks down. Cubs are pretty affordable, and they're like a top stack. So I really don't see too much of a salary issue. I really think you can jam in guys like Cole and Senga or Cole and Webb. Cole Ryan might be a little bit tougher, but I still think it's totally viable, especially with the cheap guys on Minnesota. And Ian Gomes, 3.1K for catching. And yeah, so that's kind of the slate. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Good luck in your contest. Mega Ruler is going to be back tomorrow on Thursday. I will be back on Friday, and the Mega is going to be back on Saturday. So thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 5,000. Hopefully we can do it. Yeah, good luck.